Alrighty. Is this one of your farmer buddies bringing this in, or what have we got?
Yeah, I'm not sure, weekend warrior farmer or just what he's got going on. Early 1950s again, model TO-30 Ferguson tractor. This, I believe, is a Z129 Continental engine. We don't know a lot about it. He doesn't know a lot about it either. I think it's a tractor he has picked up on an auction, and then maybe found out it wasn't as good as he thought it was. There was a little bit of discussion that there may be some coolant in the oil. I don't know that for sure. He's already drained the oil out before he brought it to us, but wants us to open it up, see what's inside, and see if we can go through it, make it new again. There are some sketchy things we see right away here on the outside.
Yeah, kind of noticed the fan belt here.
Yeah, they've changed it from a generator to an alternator on here, and this belt does not line up at all. My gosh, that must be, what, 1/4 of an inch off?
Yeah.
Alternator sitting to the back. Has kind of a funky bracket down here with some alignment shims behind it to try to keep it together. He did put a brand new aftermarket carburetor on it, trying to get this thing to run. And then we come back here to the flywheel, and I don't even know what to say about this. That flywheel has probably been ground so many times that the lip that the ring gear is supposed to sit up against is non-existent. They probably had trouble with the starter pushing the ring gear off of it. So somebody did a really nice job here of welding that back on. I can't say as though I've never ever seen a weld any better than that one. So I'm sorry whoever did that. We're making fun of you.
Farmer welds, right?
Yeah.
Farmers are kind of dangerous with welders because they make stuff stick together, but I don't think I've ever seen it look pretty.
But it gets the job done. That's all that matters. Here's something else kind of interesting. I'm assuming there's supposed to be a temperature sending unit in there, and it appears they just took a bolt, not even a pipe thread there, but a bolt, ground some flats on it so they could put a wrench on it and screwed it in a hole with a little bit of blue silicone, and hopefully that's sealing things up.
So is that like a canister oil filter?
Yeah, it has a canister oil filter over here laying sideways.
Is there oil in it right now?
There's no oil in the engine,
But the filter
but
probably...
the filter may have some oil in there yet, depending how much either did or didn't dry down or drain down.
Well, should we start tearing into it?
Yeah, we got the starter here for it too. I told him bring enough pieces in with this so we maybe run this engine when we get done. So we do have the starter here. That's why he left the alternator and fan carburetor flywheel on here. So I guess this is start taking things apart. See what we find on the inside.
Before we get too deep into this engine, we wanted to take a quick break to talk to you guys about the sponsor that made today's video possible.
And as you all know, I finally got that big promotion I've been dreaming of, from the cleaning guy to the cleaning grandpa a while ago.
Yeah, and now I'm like every other parent out there dreaming that one day my kid will grow up to be happy, successful, and financially independent.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, that's why I'm excited to tell you about setting up a kid's investment account through Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. A UGMA Kids Investment Account allows you to invest on their behalf and gives their investments more time to grow, setting them on a path of compounding returns into adulthood. These investments can be used for anything that benefits your child, from club sports and summer camp to education, a first home, or even to kickstart their first business. Fabric makes it quick and easy. Set up an account online and start investing with as little as $1 a day. There are no contribution limits, multiple tax advantages, and they're SIPC insured up to $500,000. You can share your child's unique gifting link with family and friends and encourage them to invest as much in your child's future as some of them spend on that endless pile of toys that your kid might not even play with. Fabric has partnered with Gerber Life, a name trusted by millions of families like yours for over 50 years. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/JimsAuto. That's meetfabric.com/JimsAuto. Now let's see if we can figure out where the cleaning grandpa went and find out what's wrong with this engine. Gasket's crumbling away. I guess how far in do we want to get before we take the clutch and flywheel off and actually mount it? Get all the accessory stuff off.
Let's go ahead and, being he had built a stand here to set this on, let's go ahead and we can take the clutch and flywheel off, but I think we'll tear it clear down to the short block before we try to hang it, because it is a pretty heavy engine.
Okay.
Get this chain out of here.
What's the little cotter pin do?
I wonder if some of the governor linkage or something maybe hooked on back there or something. That would be my guess at this point. Boy, those have been on there a while. Probably get it loose there and kind of unscrew it then.
Are you keeping these?
Throw them in to bake. It'll burn the rubber off of it, but we may need the washer off of that yet.
Okay.
Wow, look at that. That has definitely had some moisture in it for a long time. That's starting to scare me already. Well, I guess let's go ahead and get the rocker shaft off there. Do we want to roll this over, and do you want to go ahead with that distributor a little bit first? Where are the timing marks on this thing? Yeah, I can't get to them. Right there is a little window, I think, where you would go in through to set the ignition timing, but his bracket here kind of covers that up. Not much resistance, turn it over. Okay, there's number 1 exhaust valve. Open and closed. How come I don't see the intake moving? What's going on here? We must have valves stuck open. Hold that up in that position.
Up like that?
Let's see, I was actually turn the engine backwards. Okay, so there's the intake opened and closed. So now, if I can get behind here and see where the timing marks are. There, a plug came out. That's where you set the timing through. So now, can I see in there at all? Okay, I can see through here, my timing marks are coming up. So I'm going to bring them on down here, but I'm going to watch in through this little hole. Okay, I do have it at top dead center right now. So if you want, just pull the distributor off there.
So explain for people who don't understand what you're doing.
Okay, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Fair enough.
I want to take notice of where it is so that we know how to put it back the same way. So let's go through this one more time though. Just to make sure I'm where I think I am. Okay, there's intake, opening and closing. And now I want to bring it up to top dead center. That'll be number 1. There I am, top dead center, number 1. Now I want to look and see where the distributor was located. So this was on just like that. This would have been number 1 wire. 1, 3, 4, 2. So when I pull this off, I see my number 1 wire is right here where the rotor is pointing. So when we put this back together, we want to drop the distributor back in so it's pointing that same way again. And without having prior experience with this or taking this apart, I don't know if this is designed so there's only one position it can go in or if there's multiple positions. But we want to make sure we get it right back in this position again. And I'm going to put a mark on here that that's where my distributor was when we took it apart. And we'll make note here that the housing pointing in this direction here, but as long as you got a picture of that for us. And I'm going to take a picture of it myself, so if I'm the one that ends up having to put this back together, I will know exactly how to put that back in. Okay, as I take the distributor out now, okay, it does have just a gear on the bottom here. So that's why, you know, that can go in multiple positions. There's nothing to say it couldn't go in up that way or over this way. But when we put this back together, we want to put it in so it's sitting that same way, pointing in the same direction, and that way it'll line up with the wires on the cap to be in proper time.
So it's mostly an ease of assembly for you kind of
Ease of
thing.
assembly for me, and to get it back the way it was when it was new. I mean, if I didn't get that back in the right gear, you can move the wires around on the cap and make it run, but I always like to put them back the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now, how do you get that apart with all that silicone in there?
Just like that. Okay, well, here comes the rocker shaft. That is a nasty mess.
Stinks. That's how they always, old ones always smell like that.
I think we got some caps here on the end of the valves. Oh yeah, look at those little things. That's unusual.
Huh. Little lash cap kind
Yeah,
of thing?
the intake has kind of a normal lash cap, like you would see on any motor, but the exhaust valves have a little lash cap that actually goes into a hole on the end of the valve there. As I recall, the replacement valves for these, they do away with that.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask, if you can even get parts like that for them.
Yeah, I think these parts would be hard to find, but if we end up replacing the valves, they have done away with that design. Just made the end of the valve a little bit longer with a hardened tip on it.
Well, it kind of seems like you're going to have to replace probably at least one valve. Because this one is stuck.
Yeah. Put those in the keeper.
Can I pull the push
here.
rods out, or is this one of those that does it matter if?
No, go ahead and, oh. It's supposed to look like that.
I don't think so, but I wasn't around when these were new, you know, back when dirt was new, so you tell me.
There's one problem already. There you go.
Oh, I'm using the not rubber side of the rubber hammer. There we go.
So now, did that have bolts behind it? No.
No.
So, are any of the other push rods bent?
I don't know yet.
Don't appear to be. So how did you manage to pull out?
Well, I knew that was the stuck valve
Okay.
because all the rest are.
And it's stuck in a closed position, isn't it? I wonder,
Yeah.
or if this thing could have been run on bad gas too. That's usually where we see the
Take the manifold off and smell it.
valves. Well, you're the one who always likes to smell things. Should I get the carburetor out of the way?
Excuse me for using all 5 of my senses. You know, because I'm blind in one eye.
Maybe that's what it is. You know, I've always heard that if you have one of your senses that does not work, your others become that much better. I know my mom had really bad eyesight, and every time I tried to sneak out of the house, she could hear the door.
I don't think I ever snuck out of the house. Where the heck was I going to go?
I think me and Mom were talking about that a while back, wondering what kind of things you guys did that we didn't know about.
I'm pretty sure I told you, hey, I'm leaving.
And we said, good riddance.
Yeah.
Carburetor does look nice. Like, completely clean. Looks like those are going to be kind of fun to get at.
Yeah, it's kind of a funky manifold design.
Well, this has several bolts on here that are really hard to access. Yeah, just nothing fits in where they're at. Oh, man.
Whoever designed that manifold was it?
You can't say that on the video,
Yes, I can.
but you're right.
I think it's moving.
Hey, I got one manifold nut off. Can't get it out of there, but I got it off.
Okay, there's the housing. Glued on. So how fresh is all this silicone? I didn't know if he'd been in it.
Considering
or-
it's blue, I don't think it's very fresh. When they first came out with silicone, everything, it was all blue. But I don't see many people using the blue at this point in time. Pardon me? For Nicholas? What can I do for you? Okay, what is it about that one? Is there something down in there?
What did I see?
Jim's that wave
Unless
machine.
that's a wire or something.
Hello.
Oh, there is like a wire. What the heck is that all about?
Yeah? Oh, how much have you got?
Had a little piece of wire around
Oh, we're...
it. Yeah.
Hey, now the wrench will go on. Why was there a wire around it?
I don't know. What did I do with that? It wasn't even really around it.
Just laying down in there?
Kinda.
Well, that's what I kept fighting it. Like, it has to go on.
Okay.
Okay, finally, it's off. There it is.
What a janky design.
Well, it works. Okay.
Well, this was a little too soon to be designed during Reefer Madness era.
Maybe at the beginning of it. I think they had that stuff a lot longer than you may
Yeah.
think they had it.
Longer than the government tells us they did?
Yeah, because I remember my dad and some of my uncles getting together talking about this wacky weed that grew along the ditch banks.
Wacky weed. Nice. Okay.
What do they look like?
2 dry, 3 dry, 1 a little.
Well, that one there that's wet is completely washed,
Yeah.
probably from oil. But they're fairly new, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody tried to do a tune-up on it and it didn't do what it needed.
Oh, it took the stud. All right. It's tighter than I thought it was.
For as simple as this motor is, the design of it has made it kind of hard to get out of all the fasteners.
I have to let these soak for a while or put some heat on them or something.
I'll show you a trick on them in a little bit.
All right. You done yet?
Now I am. It's not that heavy, but it's just tight coming up off those studs, and it's a bad place to try to lift.
The key when something is stuck is to force it. That's what I was always
There.
taught.
See if you can give us just a little bit of lift with that. There, we got her. Now that eye is not in there very good. Let's clear a little bit of spot there where we can just set it.
Clear a little bit of spot.
So what do we got? What I'm worried about, do we have any cracks in between?
Nothing obvious.
Okay. I don't see as though the head gasket was blown out anywhere. It looks quite old, but it's not blown out anywhere. Yeah, I would say it's probably been hot. Oh, you know what? If you look real close at this, can you see the grinder marks along top there? Somebody has cut the ridge out of this and did just a re-ring on it. Because, you know, I'm feeling there for a ridge at the top and I'm not seeing any. But I'll bet it's because they grounded out of it. But there are a bunch of scoring marks up and down the sides of the cylinder here. Oh, this one here is all scored too.
Yeah.
It's not real rough, but it's visible. I'll bet it's been run quite a bit since the time that happened. Otherwise it wouldn't be polished as much as that is. Oh, look at this. You know, pistons will normally rock in the cylinders a little bit, but I don't think they normally rock quite that much. That's a bunch. Yeah, that is really loose. But no cracks between, huh?
Not that I see at this point.
That's a good sign. Real good sign. This front cylinder here, there is some carbon buildup there, but it's washed clean on the outside edges. That goes along with all that oil we saw in there. I'll bet it's pumping a lot of oil through that cylinder. But the valves sit up pretty nice. They're not receded way deep into the head. So maybe it hasn't had too many valve jobs done over the years. I don't see anything obvious there that scares me. So I guess let's go back, concentrate on getting the rest of the block apart.
Okay.
Where are those studs that you said we had to get apart? Follow me.
Okay.
Okay, the way I get these nuts loose on a stud that's where they're stuck on there, take the hammer, hit them like that, and I should be able to just clamp them here in the vise. I'm going to take my brass jaws out. And hopefully they'll come loose. Just that easy. But see, Junior didn't watch me do that.
I'm
he
paying
won't-
attention.
You what?
I'm paying attention.
He says he's paying attention. I don't think he is.
They painted over the tag, the identification tag, so I was trying to see if we could get the paint off to.
Okay. See what the oil filter looks like. A lot of nasty stuff there. Sludge. We could cut that open, see what's inside it, but I'm not up to making that much of a mess today. What we have it for?
Yeah.
Don't know.
There goes the corner of the plate. Almost got them all.
Okay, you ready to take the clutch off?
Sure.
Grab that. How bad is it? Greasy. It's not worn that bad. What about that side of it? We'll run that through, clean it up. See if he wants to replace it or if he just wants to put it back. Now then, this wonderful flywheel. Really worn out. You know what? When people do those, instead of grinding that whole surface and grinding away that lip that goes on there, there's no reason you should have to grind out that far. Just grind out part way here, and that would salvage that edge and still take care of the clutch and pressure plate area.
Okay, before you go any further, it's lunchtime.
Okay?
And I take lunch very seriously.
Okay. Can I at least take the flywheel off? 4 bolts.
You know those are going to twist off.
No, they'll be stuck.
Yeah. All right, fine. Then we got to go eat.
Well, I take lunch serious too, so I'm with you. Almost more than this would handle. There. Now we're at a good stopping point. Well, I saw one of these on eBay. I think this is going to go into scrap iron, and we'll just order that one off of eBay to put back on here, because I am not going to put that back on. I'm sure it's way out of balance. And then about the time the guy puts it in the tractor and it gives him trouble and he has to split it again, so it's just not worth it. Let's get this rear seal off the back end here, and let's go ahead and hang it up on the stand then before we do the rest of it. Little parts. Am I looking at that right? Do those bolt in from the inside? From the inside of the motor? Those may come from the inside. Don't they?
Huh.
That's strange. Wonder why they would do that.
So we can't take that off yet.
There are some places that electric impact really works nice, and there's other places that it's just heavy and awkward and doesn't do what we need.
Why'd you hand this to me?
To put away and turn the air on while you're over there.
Hey, sexy.
Huh?
I said, hey, sexy. You said turn the air on.
Okay. I don't know if you saw that or not, but when that one snapped loose, you could see the carbon just fly off of it. Who's hauling all the cattle up the road today? There, we have it on the stand. You got the paint all off this tag? So that says Henry Ferguson Incorporated?
Harry, I think.
Harry.
Or maybe it's Henry.
No, I think it's Harry. It is Harry. Harry Ferguson Incorporated, Detroit, Michigan. Manufactured,
In the USA by Continental Motors.
yeah, in the USA by Continental Motors Corporation. Bunch of patent numbers. Registered U.S. trademark. Motor number Z129 and a serial number. Gives a tappet clearance of 10 to 13. 20 weight oil. Must show one temperature and 30 weight for another. I can't read that anymore.
And then up here, powerful as the nation.
Wow.
All 24 horse or 28 horse.
Yeah, it's under 30 horsepower anyway.
Yeah, all 30 horse.
All 30, on a good day, all 30 horsepower. Powerful as the nation. That's pretty incredible. Surprised that was even still on the motor after all these years. We'll have to make sure that gets back on it again.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right. So are we ready to try to take the oil pan off?
Probably.
Yeah.
Should be it.
Okay. Why don't I kind of hold that? Well, not as bad as some we've taken apart. So this is just like that Willys motor we took apart. These are both about the same vintage. And what we had viewers point out in the comments that I think is probably the truth, these floating sumps were put on there so that they would float and pull the oil off the top of what was in the crankcase. And back when this was built, all they had was non-detergent oil, so the non-detergent oil would let the sludge and whatnot settle out and stay in the bottom of the pan. And with this floating, it was always pulling the clean oil clean off the top. Although this motor does have a full flow oil filter on it. So there's no reason you couldn't run the detergent oil in this.
Yeah, look here they are.
Yeah, sure enough.
Seal is bolted on.
Yeah, that's really funny that they did that.
How many
Go ahead.
people you suppose just mangled those trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
change a rear
Yeah,
seal?
because like when we started on it and wasn't sure that's how it was going to be, if I'd have forced that, we could have really mangled that. Had a mess. Any bets on whether or not this motor's been apart before?
As far as bearings and stuff? I mean, I kind of assumed it had been, but
So what does that have for a seal in there?
just
Huh.
USA 33698.
Now, is that seal leather or is it some kind of neoprene rubber?
That's some kind of rubber, I think.
Okay. I wouldn't have been surprised, but when this motor was brand new, that
If it
could
had
have
a
had a leather seal in there.
Well, if they've worked on any of the rest of it half as many times as they've ground the flywheel.
Uh-oh. Look at there. Right on the crank. Rod's 10, mains 20. So the crank has been done at least once before. That looks kind of sketchy. Some kind of rubber seal. Let's go ahead and take the oil pump off. See what happens. Now I'm guessing we may find some shims underneath this oil pump. No, there's not. Sometimes on an engine like this, you'll find a shim stack in here that allows you to space the pump up and down for the correct backlash on the gears, because this gear drives right off the bottom crank gear. So we got the oil pump out of the way there now. Looking at it there,
Turn your flashlight off.
maybe I want to see something. Should never turn a boomer loose with a smartphone.
No crap.
Okay, so what do we want to look at here? Where is that marking I saw on the crank there? So it is marked. Getting light right there, you can see it.
R10, M20.
Rod's 10, mains 20. I don't see any date on it. I recently had another crank here we did that was stamped in that same location and they'd put a date on it. That was kind of interesting. Everything looks good. None of the bearings none of the rods look burnt or anything. Can we see down in between the cylinders at all? Because I was worried they might be cracked between sleeves.
I can't tell.
These are known for that. Well, I guess we just go ahead and let's get the rods out of it. For some reason, I thought I remembered these having a locking tab on those bolts. We need to check into that before we go back together here. Make sure we're not missing some pieces. Is it falling out?
No.
Oh. I have had motors that as soon as you took it loose, it's so worn out it just fell out. Okay. Well, the bearing's not all scratched up or anything. Let's see what it's marked, 10 thousandths. So it is just like a crank was stamped.
FM.
FM, yeah, Federal Mogul. Is there a date on it? I don't see any date though. It would have been fun to figure out how long these have been in there. How's that look? I wondered how loose the pin bushing was. I can feel a little bit, but it's not too bad. Okay, we're good.
So that's one that was a little scored up. A couple bad spots.
So in looking this engine over as we're tearing it down here, I'm kind of looking at what the rings are like and what the pistons look like. I don't have a lot of wear in the wrist pin bushing, but I did notice here that this top ring groove has got a spacer in with it on top of the ring. And what that is, that's an old way of repairing old pistons. Perfect Circle made a tool called a manulathe. And you go in and you machine out that top groove a little bit wider, and then you put a spacer in with it. And I just happen to have one of those over here yet. I pulled this out of the drawer just to show the guys here. Perfect Circle piston regroover. It's pretty dusty on top. I actually bought this used at an auction several years ago. But this is a tool, and you adjust these fingers here out to where they will ride in the top groove of that piston. There's a handle that goes in here, and you revolve this around the piston, and there's a lathe bit in here that cuts that groove out just a little bit wider to square it up again after it's been worn out. And then you get the grooves or spacer spacers to go back in with it. They look just like an oil ring, but it's actually a spacer that goes in on top of the ring then to take up the extra width that you've cut out, and now you have a new ring groove on your old pistons. A lot of that was done years and years ago. You don't see that anymore though.
Because new pistons were too expensive, or?
I think new pistons were expensive compared to today. People were trying to save money.
Yeah.
Just, you know, it was a means to be able to just re-ring this engine, and kind of halfway salvage your piston to get a little more use out of it again.
So is that something that you'd take it to a machine shop and they're going to do it, or just a repair shop is going to have that kind of stuff? Or
A repair shop might have that, but in this area around here, that was something, as far as I know, you'd had to go into a machine shop. The very first shop I started out in had one of those.
Huh.
And even at that time, late 70s, early 80s, it was already kind of getting to be a thing of the past. We didn't do that very often, but once in a while, you'd get a set of pistons in like this that you wanted to salvage, and it was a means of making the repair.
now spin them the rest of the way out.
Glad somebody cut the ridge out of the top to make those pistons come out nice.
Yeah.
Once you put some leather gloves on so you can grab this. Go on and get your finger in here. Did it move?
I don't think so. It looks like it's moving. There we go.
You're getting their bite. There we go. Got it. No damage. That's good for once. There we go. Okay. Now then, this is all the governor assembly here. This is what ties into the carburetor. And these balls under here, as they fly out, it tries to slow the engine down. And as you pull the throttle open, more spring pressure against it, it lets it rev up a little bit higher. But that's what helps keep it at the same speed all the time. I have had those where those just all fell out when you started on it. You got an oil slinger there. Now let's see if this one's in time. Last motor we took apart was not together right. Yeah, there's the marks. One dot on the crank gear as the crank is at top center, and two little dots on either side on the cam gear. So at least this motor was in time. Gears look pretty good at this point. So let's go ahead and take this off. Yeah, that actually looks pretty good shape. I'm glad to see that, because this stuff gets real expensive when you have to try to find replacements. Was there kind of a thrust washer back in there? No. It all looks good yet. A couple of bolts back in there, and then we could pull the cam out of it. Let's maybe go ahead and take the crank out first, though. Do those have holes drilled through them for luck wire? They do.
Yeah.
Pull one of them out. Don't lose the washer. So these bolts, these main bolts, have a hole drilled through here where those were wire tied when this was new. Whoever worked on it last did not put those back in. Obviously it didn't make any difference, but we will wire tie those when we go back together again. So, in looking at this bearing, it appears to be extremely worn. Some pitting in it. What we got on the back side? Federal Mogul again, 1672 SB. Boy, nothing to indicate a date. You can see everywhere it sat for an extended period of time, where the groove is through the middle of the bearing and the oil hole. It sat two different spots for an extended time and rusted into the crank.
Yep.
Yeah. Now maybe you can get under there. There we go.
You're pretty good little pry bars.
They are good little pry bars. Now I'm kind of amazed the crank looks as nice as it does.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Nothing really looks as far as the crank, nothing looks excessively worn, just like it sat with water in it.
Yeah, it looks like it has sat with water. It's just an old worn out motor. I'm a little worried about where that water was coming from though. We haven't necessarily found that. Ah, it's right there, ready to come. There we go. Look how thin that main cap is across there. Although it does have the oil pump on there along with it, but it sure makes that cap look thin. How come I have to do the heavy stuff?
I can do it.
You know what? Does this have, it does. This has little dowel pins in there that hold that thrust washer from turning. So we're going to have to pull the gear off first here. Okay, there comes our gear off there. Let's go ahead and pull the cam out of here. Get it out of our way. Where'd the other one go? There it is. Okay, let's see how the cam looks. Worn.
We're going to say, are we going to have these reground or are we?
Yeah, we'll have to send this one out and get it reground.
Okay, so I don't need to worry about labeling lifters?
No.
Okay.
Won't have to worry about keeping those in order because we will be regrinding this before it goes back together. No lobes. I mean, it hasn't flattened the cab or anything, but I can see quite a little wear on the lobes there. Lifters, even a flat tappet like this, should have a little bit of a crown to them. And when you put two of them together, they should rock on each other. And there is no rocking going on here. In fact, if I put them off to the side like that, I can feel a little bit that they're actually cupped in. Just a little bit. There's that. There we go. Oop, half at a time. Well, it was...
Now it's a two-piece.
Yeah, it's a two-piece. Well, I think it was already cracked there on one side.
Some shims for the end play, I assume, or?
Yeah.
So you put that in. How do you do all that?
Well, they're kind of a pain because you have to put it all together.
And then find out you need more
shim. And then
shim.
find out you need to add to it or take away from it. So it gets a little bit time-consuming doing that. So
I've always loved this really short screwdriver.
And now you broke it?
No, it's always been
It's
this
always
way.
been that way?
And I've always loved it.
You know what? Look at this bearing. You can see wear mark around this edge. That has been cracked and maybe out of place even for quite some time. Look at that, because the wear mark comes clear out to the outside here. You can see it comes up around that way, but it's way inside here. We can take the keys out. You want to do that?
The easiest, huh?
Especially since they're loose.
This one ain't. You'll have to get that one out.
Oh yeah, that key's tight. Really tight. Oh, that ain't good.
Yikes.
That's not good. That's filled with epoxy.
I think the same farmer worked on that worked on the flywheel. Well, maybe not. Maybe his cousin, because...
Well, at least he didn't try to weld it. But yeah, that keyway is worn out on the crank.
So they just filled
It
it
has
with...
been loose, so they filled it with epoxy and put it together. I guess it worked. That was actually the tight one of the two.
The things you find.
The things you find when you're working on 75-year-old motors.
See, this shim just has a cut.
You've got two shims there, yeah.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't put that in because I look like a dippy-doo. I'm like, why will it not come off? Because I had two. And that one.
Now that does not have any.
That one doesn't appear to have any keyway cut.
That one appears to be homemade.
Is that what it is?
Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody made that one because I can see little grinder marks around the outside edge. Yeah, that is not an original.
Huh.
It worked, served a purpose.
Here goes the rest of that epoxy. Wonder how hard it is to find a crank. Is this like, were these Continentals used in all kinds of applications, or is this?
Well, I'm not sure where all this particular engine was used because where I've always seen them is out of the Ferguson tractors. There's a lot of those around this area.
Well, I was just saying, you know, like those pony motors,
Right,
that
that
are
were in-
Continental, they're used in all kinds of stuff. Or what else was there a while back that's used? That Hercules, that was used all over the place.
Oh, in that car?
Yeah. Okay.
It was probably used far more places than in the cars.
Yeah.
We've got gooey streaming down that, so
Okay, so if we're lucky, the O-rings on the bottom of those sleeves are leaking, and that's where our water is coming from.
and
Kinda
if we're
looks
not
that way.
lucky, there's a
If we're
fat
not-
crack right between
Well,
here that we can't see.
They'll crack right in here between the,
Between these two
Yeah.
and these two.
yeah.
Do they ever crack from here to here?
You know, it very well could.
Okay, so are we going to pull these sleeves, or
Well, I'm assuming we will.
because you said they're wet?
Yeah, I picture them being pretty tight. Let me grab another hammer and we'll just kind of try it first.
So if you bring the camera around, I was just showing something is leaking down. Looks like it's been maybe leaking down. So maybe the O-ring on the bottom of the sleeve is leaking, and that's where the water is coming down. See, it's honestly, it's like super gooey there. You see that? It's like super gooey. So maybe that's where
Yeah.
it's leaking,
I'm really hoping that's what it is.
getting water into the oil.
Now I'm going to put this rubber hammer just up against the bottom edge of one of them and hit it. Didn't budge, did it?
No.
Okay, well let's get the puller out.
So there'll probably be
people confused about this because we say not to use a sleeve puller in one of our videos that has like 1 million views. But these are wet sleeves, and in that video they were dry sleeves.
Yeah, we never use a puller on dry sleeves because it's so much easier and easier to keep from damaging the block if we just bore the dry sleeve out. But this being a wet sleeve, when it comes out, you'll see it's quite a bit different than that.
That being said, with how thin they are, you still got to be kind of careful though, not to have the fingers sticking out.
Yeah.
And grab the bottom of the block. So the history on this, we have no idea how long it sat.
No history because, like I say, I think the guy just bought it at an auction. So he has no history of what went on with it. Other than, an auctioneer always says it, it was running when they shut it off.
Mm-hmm. Running when they shut it off. That's how they usually are.
You always hear the story about the guy at the drag strip, how his car was running the best it's ever run just before it blew up. As I get my nose over here closer, this thing smells hot.
Does it?
Yes. Yeah, I can smell the burnt antifreeze.
Talking smack about me smelling things, and here you are.
Let's roll this over for the sake of the camera. And if you can get a shot in there showing how those arms hook into the bottom edge of that sleeve. But what you have to be real careful as I start pulling, sometimes the sleeve is thin enough that these will catch the block. And we certainly don't want to mess the block any, but we can go at least a 1/2 inch there on that sleeve before it'll be to the block.
Hopefully
and
that's enough.
That should be enough to have the sleeve loose. Okay, can you see that? Sleeve's starting to come up.
And if it gets tight, you really, really bear down on that. So your fingers must not have hit.
Okay, I'm going to pull up on this. You get ready to grab that sleeve if it comes off the hooks here.
Scared me.
I'm going to pop it up again. That didn't work. Can you get it come on up?
Ouch. Pinch myself. No. Now that it's this far, could we tap from the bottom and...
Is it moving any?
Maybe. Yeah. Not very much, but it's moving.
I can't tell if it's moving any or not. Let's tap it back down and start over.
You're almost to the O-rings.
Yeah, there's part of the O-ring right there. Let's go back down.
So when it's this corroded and, obviously the O-rings are trashed by the time you do get it out, how do you know if that's actually where it was leaking or not?
Well, considering the O-rings are just rotted to that point, I mean, you can be pretty assured that that's where the problem was at. And on top of this having been overheated, it probably very much cooked the O-rings. But look how rusted that is. I would not be surprised at all if that was the original sleeve for this engine. I don't think those have ever been changed. You can see where it's ate back into it. Sometimes you'll have these that they rust completely through. What are you seeing?
It's cracked.
Is it really?
It's got to be. Maybe. Oh, maybe not. Now my eyes are lying to me. No, I think it's cracked.
Which eye were you using?
Not the good one. Come look.
Oh yeah, it's cracked. Yeah, this block is junk. Oh man, yeah. There's where our water is coming from.
Thanks, Obama. Again.
You want to get a shot of that down in there, Josh? And this is what I was afraid we would find on these, because I have seen this more than once on these engines. Always felt like it was probably because they had frozen at some point in time and spread that open. But again, this one has been overheated. I don't think overheating it would cause that, but
See, from here, I agree it looked like the parting line,
yeah.
but it's actually just slightly over. You can just barely see it, because we were looking in and you could see that line, which is what you were talking about, is the parting line in
Yeah.
the mold when they cast the block. But just past that towards you, you can see where the crack has come up. So do any of your typical crack repair techniques, like stitching that, is that even a possibility?
I would not consider that a possibility on this. Because you've got to have some way to hold that together.
Right. And there's just
And
nothing.
as soon as you try to screw any kind of a plug into that, it's going to try to spread it apart. Now, some of those lock and stitch plugs, their claim to fame is that they actually pull a crack back together. You plug this in over there behind you? Oh yeah. Now, if you get your light over this way. Okay. Now, Josh, can you let me blow it up.
Can you pull the Magnaflux out at this point?
It'll hold it. Keep it there better. Got her? Yeah, it's very much cracked. And you can see on the bottom of that sleeve around here, you can see the trails where the water has been coming down, dripping off the edge of it. Okay, so we're done with this block. Where do we go from here?
Guess it depends what the customer wants to do.
Why don't we, let's search the internet just a little bit, see what we can find for blocks. I have in the past. I remember one time a guy took one somewhere and they actually cut that out and brazed that. But my gosh, it gets into so much labor by the time you repair the crack, and then you got to machine those lower counter bores again for the sleeve to go in. It just gets to be more than the thing is worth.
Well, and the guess, we didn't really look at this side. I wonder, that looks cracked too.
Where'd their light go?
Yeah,
Yeah, that one's cracked too.
that's huge. So our optimism that trail where you could see the sludge coming down was
Just
where it was leaking. That is where it was leaking, but this block is just splitting in two.
Yeah. Why don't you grab the Magnaflux and let's do that one too. Yeah, we're done.
So I guarantee this is cracked too.
Oh, yeah.
They're all cracked.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. That's what. This is what you deal with on.
Yeah.
I think I read this. These were from this tractor was from 51 to 54 or something
Yeah.
like that. So it's the
Yeah.
same era as the Jeep that we're dealing with
Right.
cracks on.
Probably when these were cast, they probably didn't have as good casting techniques as they do now. So they may have been a little sketchier to begin with, but that's just a bad area because it is so thin. Such a small piece there. What is that, about an inch height-wise and a half an inch wide?
Yeah.
And that's carrying all the load of that sleeve in there with the piston hammering up and down. And then I don't know for sure, but I always thought that was probably a block that had been frozen at some time, and the coolant, or lack of coolant, with the water
So
pushed the block open.
when did they start actually running good antifreeze instead of just water in a block?
You know, I don't know for sure, but at the time this was new, it would not have surprised me if they were just running straight water and then just draining it out at the end of the day if it was cold weather, and then
Yeah.
filling it back up.
And if they were as good as I am with my sprinkler
Well, I was
system,
gonna
or
say, you know, just from your sprinkler system at home, how easy it is to have
one day.
one day it gets a little bit colder than you thought it was going to be.
Well, just like 2 days ago, I think it hit 31,
Yeah.
and it's been 80s or
Yeah.
70s here the last few
Yeah,
days.
so you
So
kind of forget about that.
some of us who are a little less organized in life are the ones with cracked blocks.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I
Well,
guess we clean up. The head you could probably use if you can find a block, but
Yeah,
the
and
crank is junk.
we never tore that down to look at it yet, see why the valve was stuck. One of two things: either the moisture got to it when it was sitting and it stuck, or they ran it on some bad gas and stuck the valves. Bent the push rod.
But I guess where I was going, block probably pretty much junk.
You know, it'd be nice if they could find a short block to start with, because we'd have a good block and then maybe a crankshaft that we didn't have to deal with that worn out keyway on.
Cam needs ground.
Cam needs reground, which we
Flywheel needs
anticipated.
replaced.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. So this may be the end of this. This may be just the beginning of a quest to find parts.
Yeah,
So we'll give a customer a
Alrighty.
call this afternoon, see what he says.
sounds good.
See you later.